Hi guys, today we have Naveen with us, who is a member of the teaching faculty at Srishti. Hi Naveen.
Hello.
Okay, we'll start off with the basics and we start off with the very first as to how did you get into design and why did you get into education about design rather than
Talk about your journey and how you got into design.
Okay. Um, yeah, so, I'll need to share some embarrassing details about myself now,
sure.
about why I got into design. How far should I go back?
Look, however far.
Okay, so there's a reason why I got into architecture. Maybe I should not reveal that reason. So when I finished my 12th and then I got into studying architecture, at that time I had no clue what architecture was and what it entailed. And I'd given a bunch of entrance exams. This is 1999, so it was very easy to give entrance exams, and I had not prepared anything after my 12th. So I had given for national medical, engineering, law, all sort of entrance exams. And my father was very clear that he'll only be able to afford a free seat, as in a non-payment seat. We had in Karnataka free non-payment and all that. Then I saw architecture is there and not many people take it, and it didn't have any math. Well, it did, but in the syllabus it didn't show as math. It had a lot of drawing, sketching, and history, which are my favorite topics. So I said, okay, I'm going to take architecture. I don't know what it is. I don't know what people do with this degree, what is the next, but 5 years I'm set, I'm going to take this. And there was a free seat in Belgaum, so my father also didn't ask many questions. But then when the 5 years of architecture education was quite transformational for me, actually. We were the second batch, so which meant that there's a lot of room for experimentation at multiple levels. And we also were very fortunate to get a couple of really good facilitators.
Okay.
And their approach to teaching is still something that I carry very closely with me. At about when I was in fourth year, I heard something there's this called as design. So the question about what next answered by itself, like, okay, I'll do design for my master's. And there are these NID and IDC and entrance exams for those two. Then in my fifth year, I gave an entrance exam for IDC, which is called a SEED, come to Bangalore. And I think it's one of the most fun entrance exam experience that I ever had in my life. And it's sad that they have turned that beautiful set of question paper into now, I don't know what it is. It's just become multiple choice. Back then we had questions around, still remember, it's about describe an experience of a child in a bus.
Okay.
Or draw an umbrella. They gave 5 keywords and asked us to write or draw a story about.
Yeah.
So stuff like that, which was and there's no prep, it just kind of, and I got a good rank. I got All India 3 ranking. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm good at it. So I went for the interview. They rejected me the first time at IDC. I went second round and then I got into IDC. But the 2 years of IDC were very boring.
Okay.
Yeah, I got into product design, but it was very boring because it was all very old style teaching. Nothing had shifted over the past 15 years there in terms of how they approach learning. But at the same time, there were all these interesting phones coming into market. And I was trying to explore what does this design for phones with the phones mean. This was 2005, 2007, which is when I started getting interested in human-computer interaction.
Okay.
But because I was a product design student, I was not allowed to design interfaces in my final thesis.
Oh.
I had to do something product. Anyway, came up with something, did something, doesn't matter. But then since then, I started getting into this idea of how do people engage with technology and how can we learn about that and design for that. And post my master's, I did a research stint with one of the professors there, Anagha Joshi, on a Nokia research grant for 6 months that looked at how people with semi-literate or not enough English language skills used phones. And we did a particular research of visiting people and interviewing them and understanding their usage patterns of the phone book. And then we came up with a simple design to kind of taking inspiration from that and design a phone book application. And we published it research. And that's how I got interested in research.
What avenues do you think there are to explore with with interaction between technology and humans when it comes to right now in 2024? Back in 2007, you said like you could design a phone book application for a smartphone, but now all
It
of
was
that's
not a
been done.
smartphone, it was a feature phone.
Feature phone, okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting. But now if you had to make a new generation of technology that humans can interact with, what would you be designing?
I wouldn't be.
Okay,
So
that's interesting.
my idea of design has changed.
Okay.
So, and I can see this connect from since then. So I'll give an example. So when we were doing research, we came across quite a lot of people who had their own ways of beating the system, so to speak, the limitation of tech. One imposed tech on them, the phone, which is keypad based, but they had different ways to navigate it. So one of them had shared their friend's name in the form of a 4-digit number.
Okay.
4-digit number because in their friend circle it was only a person who had a motorbike and the number of the motorbike was easy.
Oh.
Now in those phones, entering numbers were easier than entering text because they had a coding keyboard, which means that if you need to press multiple times to get an alphabet, the same keyboard.
Right.
Coding keyboard was first demoed by Douglas Engelbart in 60s on something called as it's called as a mother of all demos. You must check it out.
Okay.
So it has evolved into that phone. So people kind of do a lot of things on their own, which is creative, which I've come to believe is design. So my interest largely is now looking at how do we facilitate people to imagine and design their own tools or appropriate other tools
Okay.
that is there. And I do believe this may be a bit of the thing that there's really not much room and not need for always some fancy or even novel things to be thinking about, so that there's only certain set of people keep thinking of what new to design. What new can and could emerge from somebody who is actually working with something. For example, let's say a musician who is practicing a lot about music and experimenting also with technology, and what new will emerge for that musician there, and that could be shared with others. And others could appropriate that. So my idea of design is now shifted from like a small set of designers or engineers thinking of these, but emerging through practice.
Emerging through practice.
Of certain people and then spreading along. So it's more aligned to free and open software movements and open hardware movements and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay. What's open software movements or open hardware movements? Can you speak a little about that?
Yeah. So there is this called as free and open source software movements or free, libre and open source software movements. So and there's a distinction between that. Free doesn't mean that the software is free.
Okay.
Free means it is free for people to change and modify and use. So because the source code is open,
Got it.
right? But there will be charges because people have put in efforts and they'll have to survive. Libre means there is a distinction that I'm not much well aware of. But as I understand, Libre is so free and open source, and then there's free and libre. I'm not able to recollect now, but anyway, there's some distinction. I can look it up later. Yeah.
Move on. Ask.
Okay, so we want to know about some interesting projects you worked on or are currently working on.
I think the longest of the work has, for me, is with a group of women health workers in Chenpatna. And I've been working with them since 2016. A lot about design that I have learned is from them and with them. So their engagement with them has evolved, and in 2021 we started off a project to look at a community-based repository of health knowledge from the community.
Okay.
In Chenpatna. So we got a grant and there was some ideas beforehand, and these ideas were also coming from Bidar, where Shreyas has been working, and also Janastu, who are the people who do a lot of floss and open hardware.
Okay.
So we have been having conversations, and some of them got manifested in this project, where basically we set up a community network that will enable low-cost access to internet and also local mesh infrastructure. And through about 12 women health workers, we started identifying what does health mean, what sort of knowledge would the community hold around health and well-being, their own communities.
Is this specifically women's health or?
No, broader health. And health as defined by the group of women health workers
Okay.
and their communities. And then they record oral histories, and these are not necessarily oral histories, but some of them are 2 minutes, 3 minutes also. But some of them are 15, 20 minutes kind of interviews or descriptions of. So that includes episodes of trying to get a diagnosis or experience of getting bitten by a snake. As also experiences of traumatic experience in the hospitals, also traditional food practices or old people, and whole lot of topics. And it's a searchable, and the tool on which we did build this is designed by along with us with the health workers, and is designed by Janastu folks. So built by Janastu folks, called as Papad. So it was a collaborative kind of experience where we were experimenting, trying out these practices, even as the tool was getting built on paper, and we mocked it up. And over time, we now have about 220 odd audio, videos, tagged, annotated, sorted snippets about health. And we're calling it as Chenpatna Health Library.
Okay. So to summarize it, this is so your role over here was primarily to collect the data or the research that was required to build this tool.
No. The entire thing, collecting, sorting, tagging, was all done by the women health workers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it is their resource. They are the researchers.
Okay, so what was your role?
So my role was to facilitate.
Facilitate it.
So one is to interface between the outside world, which is the funders, so that we can support and sustain this and tell the stories to that world.
Okay.
That they can, and interface the community, the health workers to them. So there's exchange, get monies in it, and build a team to support this work from the design team, so to speak, and the tech team to support the interface design, the backend. For example, Abhiram, that I think is your senior, has been working on this as an intern and continue to work on whenever he's free on this. He has a lot to do with the design of Papad, the interface design, the flows, even sorting out and cleaning. He is like that. So having a group of people who are constantly there to do the technical work to support this. It's an ongoing thing. It has shifted and turned in its own kind of contours. Now we are moving into, I got a grant from Google to look at how do we imagine AI from the grassroots. So what if automation or intelligence is imagined by these women as part of their work? How different it would be. Similarly, I'm collaborating with, and this is a grant written with Melissa, who's a professor at Institute of Cape Town, and they have a community mesh network with the Ocean View community, which is a black township, which has a community radio and a digital radio doing content. So we're exploring these kind of speculative visions from the ground up. That's starting now in April.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to now move into a slightly different tangent. I want to move into human-centered design. And I want to ask you, what is human-centered design in your perspective, and where do you see a student studying human-centered design in the future, as to what roles will he be performing, or where will he be working, what will he be his day-to-day action as such. What is his future?
Sure. The name of human-centered design for the course at Srishti was not my choice. I'll be upfront about it. It was decided by my ex-boss. And then I took over all the managing. I was part of the conceptualizing the program, but the name wasn't decided. I'm not really a big fan of the human-centered design as a framing. because it
Okay.
carries a lot of connotations that are problematic.
Yeah.
But at Srishti, the focus has been to look at human-centered design as a space for exploration between humans and technology
Right.
and design. So how do these intersections can be explored together? Has been the focus largely for the bachelor's, and for masters it becomes a bit more of a inquiry-driven, goes a bit deeper.
Okay.
So unfortunately or fortunately, it gets associated with UI UX because also of the nature of some of the units and the way they were framed. So, for example, designing for screens, visual design for screens. If I would continue to be a dean, I would have banned that course, not offered that anymore. But again, I said fortunately also because there is a certain demand for these skill sets in the industry.
Right.
And being a private university, there's a certain fees that you all have to pay. And it is you expect a return, you or your parents expect a return, and the job has to be of a certain kind in order. So all that I understand, and I think that's fair enough. And we should. So human-centered design tries to consider those things also, but at the same time tries to say or equip you all to think about what is emerging next. Not only in technologies, but how, when we say emerging, how can you respond as designers or creative practitioners to what is emerging or what could be emerging? And what we need to more focus is how can you make that as a fruitful career opportunity? That's something that is a work in progress.
Right.
Because right now there seems to be a gap between what the industry wants and what you're learning.
Right.
And that's very visible. But I have a strong feeling that gap is going to narrow down, especially in speculative design. As Paul was saying 3 years back, speculative design is going to be the next design thinking trademark.
Okay.
And it's coming. I can see the patterns in India too. When a firm like Obvious does a Sunday workshop on speculative design, you know that they're on to something. So abilities to speculate and reimagine, world build are going to be more needed in the design community than ever. Both Google and Mozilla have specific teams now only on speculative design.
Oh.
And they're pitching each other against each other as if one is a bad guy and one is a do-gooder, whatever. But yeah, so there are all these patterns. So for me, the excitement of designing these courses and also facilitating some of these units is to see if the students can also see these possibilities of not being stuck in the skill. I mean, skills can be, I believe strongly that technical skills can be learned on your own.
Right.
That's true.
You don't need to pay such high fees and come here. People have learned on looking at YouTube.
Right.
So then what is it that you are learning here? So what is that long-standing abilities and capabilities that you want to capture on?
Right. So I actually was at that speculative design workshop by Obvious.
Yeah.
It was really interesting to see the different ideas that came through. We also, and the thing is there's a time constraint.
Yeah.
So in thinking in that time constraint really helped
Yeah.
like diversify and then narrow down also
Yeah.
because you need to come up. And people came up with crazy things.
Yeah.
And just that one time frame of 2 hours, I think I learned a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speculative design might just be
The next big thing.
Yeah. And also you had mentioned human-centered design. I'm just reiterating what you said. So humans, technology, and their interaction.
Yeah.
So
The relationship.
So human-computer interaction essentially.
Yeah. And so here I don't mean interaction. I mean relationship. Human-technology relationship.
Okay.
Right. So technology again. We assume technology as only digital technology.
Yeah.
But we have been sitting with technology since the longest of the time. Anything human made is technology in that sense, right? But there's a relationship. And which humans are they, and then how they get rendered? Are they producers? Are they designers? Are they makers? Or are they users? Or are they maintainers? And how that relationship changes and how you can intervene, respond, relate to these things. So that becomes important for me.
Could you speak about an example as such where this would be conceptualized? Because I'm not able to understand how would technology be in a relationship with humans.
Right. I have tried to experiment it largely now with your question papers.
Okay.
With your charrette
My
question
dad
papers
really
and the.
loves the question.
Yeah,
He
question
wishes he
paper.
would solve it.
Yeah.
It's a fun question paper.
I enjoy whenever setting these papers. I'm not doing that for BDS this time.
Oh,
So you don't have to edit it. It's okay. I'm saying I'm not doing it. If I said I had done it, I'm doing it, then you would have edited. So, so previously, for example, just taking one of the examples of the question paper, it was not for BDS. So I had, the idea was for them to demonstrate that they know how to do interaction design. And that can be so boring and templatized. Because it becomes a checklist of low fidelity, high fidelity, blah, blah. So for me, it's important that people think when they face a certain thing. So I gave a very simple example of they have to use service delivery app, food booking app, door delivery, and analyze the flow of interactions that they have done. And then redesign it to make it the most inconvenient for the user. So right now it is all designed about convenience for the user, make it more inconvenient. And when they design it, then the reflection point was, in order to make it inconvenient, how did it change the work done by the delivery person? So that they can reflect on what is the work that is done by the delivery person, and the people behind the supply chain, which is the restaurant people, whoever that is.
yeah.
Especially in Cloud Kitchen, to make our experience convenient on the app. So you make it ulta, you make it designed for inconvenience, and it becomes a bit more fun. But hope is that some people at least will start thinking about the relationship between work done and the app design, and the larger economy of who gets paid what. Yeah,
Right.
that's what I mean by relationship.
Where do you see this this particular domain, human-computer interaction or human-centered design, in the future?
I mean,
How do you see it evolving in the future?
see, the labels will keep shifting. I mean, HCI as a field may not, the label may not shift because there are a lot of people invested in maintaining it as a label,
Right.
especially academic researchers. They will never let it go because it's their currency. But human-centered design may shift because there may be someone else talking about some other centered design. But what will remain is the core abilities to basically, I would say the 6 capabilities that we have for your course.
Okay.
Speculate, imagine, discern to align, understanding, and seeing connecting the dots, connecting the patterns, understanding patterns. These are the core capabilities that will continue to hold you going forward, because the relationship between humans and technology is constantly changing or made to change for whatever reasons, and so there's also resistances. So how do you grapple with these things you will be able to do that if you develop these capabilities of anticipating, speculating, as well as looking back at what has happened and learning from the past, which is connecting the dots and stuff like that.
You were speaking about the communities of practice in Channapatna, and just for context, I would like to ask you, how important is it to understand the culture before designing any product or technology?
I would say, that's what I'm saying. My idea of design is changing, right? I would say that the goal of design is to learn, for me.
Okay.
So a goal of designer is to learn, which means that you're constantly, there's no first understand, learn, and then design. Your act of designing with the people, with a certain community, and it could be anywhere, even if you're designing for, let's say, apartment owners in a gated community, whatever. My approach would be, what I would prophesize is to be part of it, constantly be there, and see if you can reach to a point where you're both learning together about some things, and they are learning from you are learning from them. And together you're trying to figure out what could be solutions or what could be possibilities, and then see what can be made real, manifested into some kind of a tangible form. Yeah.
So rather than working separately, we work together with the
Yeah,
community.
I mean, it depends on pragmatics also, a lot of things. But yeah, largely that's the frame in which you operate, yeah.
Okay, so were there any projects where, or you had to design designing for inclusivity of different sections of society?
How do you define inclusivity?
Again, the first thing that comes to mind would be like marginalized groups, or groups that have been discriminated against, not the mainstream, for us, not for the urban population, but
Yeah.
that would be my first.
Yeah, okay.
inquiries.
I have not been directly involved in any such projects because for me, and I have a tension there because I largely am averse to this idea of technologies at scale.
Technologies at scale.
At scale. So when, for example, Arogya Setu,
Oh, yeah.
when it came out, I was super pissed, and I fought with Jay Datta on Twitter. And so if you are going to meet Dijata, don't tell him that you're my student. And there's a whole lot of design community on Twitter who is, I think, soft blocking or whatever because of that. And there was a lot of issues because now you take something like an untested technology and you think and you design for the entire population and you think that it will work is very scary for me. It shows that you're not thought through the responsibilities of a designer. And you can't then claim that that is the best you could do. And the best you could do is still has harmed a lot of people.
So you believe there should be individual catered solutions rather
I would say, and that's why my approach is rather, I mean, digital platforms are great because you can still operate at scale, but it still allows things to move from the ground and to shape its own. For example, Papad.
Yeah.
Papad is a platform. You can imagine it. It's not yet there, but you can imagine it as a tool that allows people to record oral and visual histories or experiences, tag and sort and make a repository and use it as in many different ways.
Yeah.
In Jetpatna, we're using it for health. In somewhere else, they're using it for different things. You could imagine it for climate change, looking at how farmers have been coping with climate response over the time. It allows for multiple ways, and it also is explicitly focusing on non-textual as a dominant frame, which inherently is focusing on marginalized. That is the fundamental aim. So it's not about including everyone.
Yeah.
Oh, but it's very specific. So the specificity makes it more, not the genericness. Like Arogya Setu is a generic example. Like they want to do for everyone.
Yeah. So rather than
And then you don't know who that everyone is, and you will assume the everyone is based on the presentation, a person in 3/4 going to a shopping center as their main user person.
So what would you like to change about the Arogya Setu app if you had to at that time? That should make it more.
That app should not have been there. Put that money into ASHA workers and other contact tracers who did all the work, and maybe they would needed some digital tool. Sit with them and quickly design something for them. Even a spreadsheet. There's no need for an app.
Right.
Almost all good contact tracing was done by people on the ground, not by Arogya Setu. Arogya Setu just became a vehicle to push many other agendas. Yeah.
There's something I would like to talk about, which is currently there's a huge design education boom in the country. There are a lot of colleges starting to teach design, a lot of courses online. I want to understand your opinion on this as to what are the factors contributing to this, and what your opinion of this whole situation as such.
I have a very muddled opinion about this.
Okay.
I haven't had much thought about this, so it will be a bit all over the place. But I think it's largely a pattern of a higher education becoming more market driven in India and elsewhere too, and it's a larger pattern, and which means that people in the education business have suddenly realized, not suddenly, but over time, have realized that there is money to be made or invested in design, and people will invest in design as a way to have good careers. That's the framing. in a neoliberal. What I mean by neoliberal is private-driven higher education.
Okay.
If the context of higher education in India was largely public universities across, like to matching up to the needs of the scale of population, then it would have been different.
Okay.
Because largely the needs of education of the population is met by private universities.
Right.
Right.
So where the motivation is about earning money through offering something that will promise somebody who will invest that money a good return.
Good return.
Right. So design has become that. Now whether it's good or bad is something that I don't know. It's really. But for me, it's important to understand, because I am an educator and I need to understand these things of why it is becoming.
Right.
Because I'm not so concerned about, like, let's say if so many colleges offer design, where's the quality?
Right.
That's, I think that question is, it is meaningless for me. Right? Because even so, when you define quality as design, it invariably becomes this very gate-kept idea of who can be a designer. So there are many people who have learned design through YouTube, and there's one person, I forget, I came across this in 2016 or 17. There's one account on YouTube who has like about hundreds of videos talking about UI design and how do you do UI design using a whole entire process in Hindi. So you can imagine that, and he's very popular. You can imagine that people in Hindi-speaking states who are not accessible with English have learned from that and would be practicing and designing apps. Now, can we say that that's bad design? We can't, right? Because,
It's just making design more accessible.
in one way. But is it the right way? I don't know. I'm just saying that you cannot gatekeep what is the idea of design just because there's a degree and there's a curriculum approved by.
Because
Anyone.
Because design is like learning by doing more than like nobody, like even here nobody like we don't get lectures like other fields. But that's the thing. So I just want to know what does having this space, what does having the degree do for you?
As I said, if you understand it from this economics perspective, the neoliberal economics, it's giving you that it opens you that gate towards employment. It's not only like specific jobs, but larger kind of accesses to networks, right? For example, you would know obvious and you would feel at home in obvious when you went for it. I doubt that would be the same for somebody who has learned UI design in Hindi or YouTube. And even if they know obvious, they would be very intimidated by that space. They wouldn't be going there. And it is not only obvious. I'm just giving an example. So these spaces, these degrees carry much more than what you learn in the classroom. It's the same with even public, like in IDC when I did. That's what it did. It opens up these doors. So IDC, great. NID,
Got it.
So it's a name on a paper, you're saying? It's just a thing on the paper.
Not really. That's one way to look at it. But it's much more than that, of course. But it gives you those. But to answer the question that you asked, is the value is framed by the larger kind of economics around it.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
I think this last one is.
Okay, let's ask you one last question.
Okay.
So, balance between designing for money and designing for impact. So, how much should you focus on innovation? How much should you focus on?
Wow. Okay. I would
Because
say.
I remember actually during our orientation when I was in first year, you'd said something like we need to design for fun. We need to design more for fun and not, always look for change or look for innovation. And now you've said like we need impact and
No, okay, let me clarify. I didn't say we need impact.
Okay.
You asked about my individual perspective. There I was talking to you all as a person who has conceptualized this program and how I think you could make use of this program.
Okay.
That's the difference.
Okay. Got it.
But I still believe, as somebody who is a facilitator, I want you to approach learning with a lot of fun and not carry the baggage of impact.
Got it.
Impact, I don't claim I'm making an impact. It's a huge word.
Yeah.
That's why I'm framing it as a learning. I'm learning. And I'm fortunate if I can manage others to learn with me. That's all I can expect to do. But coming back to this balance, I think it's a very tricky question. And you can, before I say anything, I think it's important for us to understand the privilege that we have, almost all of us here, to even ask this question.
Yeah.
Right? Oftentimes that is not even a choice. You need the money.
Yeah.
So there's no choice. And that's also okay. Right? Making money in this world is not bad.
Yeah.
So, but how do you keep track of how is this money coming from? Where is it coming from? What it is doing to you? What are your how do you keep track of your core intuitions of things? And let that shape your response to things. How do you understand what are the implications of a certain amount of money coming from a certain place? Right? For example, is that the frame you would like to continue to be part of?
Okay.
What I mean by that is, for example, let's say you take a job in a certain startup in HSR layout or HRBR layout that offers you a nice package. It's an exciting tech. But the tech is largely platform-based tech. Let's say that is dependent on a lot of delivery people doing their job.
Okay.
To what extent will you be able to push things? Would you want to push things given that, and increasingly when you're dependent on that kind of income and everything else, then what extent you can do this? But again, every individual has to take that call on their own. I'm just giving an example. And it's also here for me individually too. It's a daily question. Given that I do need a fixed income, a certain sense of security that Manipal offers, and a certain sense of, it's like a tenured position. Till 65 years old, if I perform to a certain level, I'm done. For the first time in my life, I saw my PF account and I had about 12 lakhs. Like, wow, that's my savings. I have no other savings. Like 12 lakhs is like, and that gives a certain kind of, it gives a certain kind of confidence. And those are important too. So how do you navigate these things is something everybody has to do, but you're also quite young. So you don't have to answer that right now. You can take your time.
That's true.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Very insightful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for accommodating all the shits.
Thanks for joining us and Sing Guy podcast. So we do this often. We get different people with different opinions and perspectives on board. We try to do this every week, and we'll keep uploading more things, and we'll keep having these discussions. And we hope that there's some value that we're generating out of this.